No duty is more important than returning thanks.
Grand salute.
Unsung and unseen warriors on the front line that battle against COVID-19.
Tiring days and sleepless nights.
Unconditional dedication.
Extraordinary courage to sacrifice.
Zeal to overcome anything.
Love and passion for your job.
Your selfless effort.
Keep us safe and healthy.
Deserve appreciation and unending gratitude.
Doctors and nurses.
Police forces and firefighters.
Pathologists and paramedics.
World leaders.
Teachers and researchers.
Grocer, our cleaners and our emergency workers.
Restaurant staff, sanitation workers.
First responders.
Essential services. Farmers.
All critical infrastructure workers.
Social workers.
Government employees and administrators.
Grand salute to you.
For keeping me safe.
For keeping my family and nation safe.
Thank you for being you. Break the chain for our unsung heroes.
Stay home, stay safe. Jai Hind.
Hello and welcome. Let us enter the domain of the question mark. Abhin, Alimchandani and the STUP Design Forum present a working philosophy that shaped our practice. In conversation with Roueida, Ayache, Architecture Studio, Paris. An architecture that asks questions in a constant quest for meaning. This is a bit of a personal journey, an encounter with Architecture Studio, which set me thinking about how to design an architectural practice. It's relevant today and relevant for the future. And I thought it's interesting to encounter Architecture Studio again, along with all of you. I'll illustrate this talk through a few of my own work, mainly to ask these questions. Is architecture an individual expression or a collective work? Is architecture developed by a personal brand in a personal style, or is it considered to be a work of a team? This is the new National Assembly building designed by STUP in Africa. What if an architect had no style? What if buildings had no typology and each work was unique in itself? This is an airport in Ayache, in Lakshadweep, which is designed keeping Stingray in mind, specific to the context and specific to the location of this city and this island. Can the architectural practice be designed to tell stories rooted in context and culture? Is architecture about storytelling, telling stories about the place and the people who are going to live and dwell in it, more than about the architect and his individual style and his kind of type of design? This is a project actually that we've just completed in Niger, which is designed like boomerang. The river Niger is called the boomerang. It's a convention center for the African Union Congress. And it's designed using the cultural symbols, the flag and the emblem of Niger, the river Niger itself, and of course the salt pans of Niger and the famous calabash in which they eat and nourish themselves. 64 presidents of the African Union will sit in a hall designed like the calabash. And the design is actually seen everywhere, in the shadows, in the carpets, in the facades. And the trees around resonate in the building and inside it. So, what if architecture was seeking radical solutions in pursuit of innovation and ideas? What if it was all about finding ideas, finding unique ideas, and actually designing and delineating those ideas to the last detail? This is actually a building that uses BIPV, photovoltaics and solar power all across the envelope of the building for Indian Oil Corporation in New Delhi. And what if the architectural practice was structured to harness and deliver ideas through a team of specialists. So what if it was just not the architect, but the entire team that worked together and delivered a product which was unique, which was delivered very, very well to the last detail. And this is a project that we've done in Chandigarh. From design to finish, it was done in just 16 months and completed and delivered to the client on date, on time, and at the right price. It's a LEED approved building. And then if you're able to work in a collaborative manner and collaborate as a team of equals, then can you not collaborate with any architect everywhere? Shouldn't we, instead of looking at personal brands and personal names, look at ourselves as a kind of a collaborative who can collaborate with other architects and make partnerships across the world? This is the Hyderabad International Airport project, where we were equal partners, and therefore there was a transfer of technology. From here onwards, we could design airports on our own. And then, whenever an architect goes from his country to another country, he becomes a global architect. But then how does he become local? Because after all, architecture is local to the context. This is the President's Palace in Ghana, which has been completed by us a few years ago, and recently finds itself in the currency note of that country. It's a sustainable building rooted to the culture, and the project is called the Seat of Government, and the design of the Presidential Palace is like the throne of the Ashanti king. This is the President's house, which again is designed using African cultural symbols. Can the practice be considered as a group of specialists working harmoniously to realize the idea and give it new meanings? Just like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, can we consider architecture as something that is conceived by a team of experts who deliver a complete product, a complete artifact full of meaning, full of detail, and resonating with a vibrance of information and knowledge? This is the new Air Force Museum that we are designing in New Delhi. So let me tell you that there are firms founded on these questions. And let me introduce you to a firm like that. A firm that has inspired me in my practice, Architecture Studio of Paris, France. Presenting Roueida Ayache, partner, Architecture Studio, in conversation with Abhin Alimchandani, STUP Design Forum.
Hello, I'm very happy to be part of this conversation with Abhin and with the Indian architect. This is a short presentation of our company. We are based in Paris and we have offices in Shanghai and a place in Venice where we display exhibition in parallel to the Biennale about architecture urban design, and it accompanies both the Contemporary Art Biennale and also the Architecture Biennale of Venice. Our office is composed by the moment of 150 architect and urban designer. We have 50 in Shanghai and 100 in Paris, and we work worldwide in several countries. We are happy to count among our team more than 25 nationalities, and this is really a big and very important strength of our company. Are some of our landmark buildings, the European Parliament of Strasbourg. It's based in France, but it's an international building because it symbolizes Europe. It's a huge scale building compared to Europe, about 200,000 square meters. And we have designed everything in this building, starting from architecture and ending with the furniture. So here you can see some images of the interior of the building and also how we have tackled the issue of scale. It means for us, it's a mega architecture, but internally we have something that's related to protected urban streets, which allow people orientate themselves very successfully in the building. We have designed the Onassis Cultural Center. It was through an international design competition. Here you see an image of Athens and how this building stand up, taking the configuration of the usual plot in Athens, but being very white and very pure. We used marble for the facade fencing, as you can see here. And inside, this building holds an opera hall for 2,000 seats. The Arab World Institute is another of our cultural landmark building. It's in a Parisian context that you can see here, but also it highlights the Islamic Arabic culture and patterns, geometrical patterns that can be very successfully used in contemporary architecture. You can see here the Musharabiyya facade. It's photoelectrical shell that can control the amount of daylight. We worked in the Emirates and in the Gulf region, in the Arabic world. So this is at Siddiqui and Sons headquarters in Dubai. It's an office building and a showroom as well. We work also obviously in China, and this is the Tibet Natural Science Museum that we have delivered a couple of years ago. And here we can see how we have get our inspiration in order to create the volume from the mountainous landscape, but also from Tibetan patterns that you can see that are used to create this facades that filter the sun. So here you have some views, and you can see how this building works internally and how is the look and feel when you are on the rooftop.
So, Roueida, this is very exciting, and it will be very interesting to understand a little more about the design philosophy of Architecture Studio, because we've always known that Architecture Studio is founded on a very, very unique design philosophy. So please take us through some slides, some experiences of the design philosophy and how it works.
So Abhin, as I was just saying, we value very much in our work approach the virtues of exchange and crossing idea and common effort. So we consider that, of course, architecture is related to art, but it has something special about it, is that it's designed with people and for people. And it's designed to suit a context, a society, and a culture. And also part of this reflection in our work is the environmental awareness that we are tackling in our design for more than 20 years now, because we believe really that our context now is not only a local context, it's a global context, and the global context means environment and means the care of our planet. So that's why this is really rooted in our practice, and all our buildings are designed to fulfill this environmental awareness. I have picked some projects that illustrate our approach for context. So this is Novansia Business School. It's in Paris, in the historical Paris. And this building highlights our philosophy towards a Parisian context or a city context, which is really fully determined already. So we don't want to be mimetic. We want to take the DNA of a city and then create a building that is within the DNA but is very contemporary. So here, those who are familiar with Paris and European city, you can see the Parisian template and how this building, the red one that you can see here, is really a contemporary building with an intelligent facade, having the Parisian DNA but developing it in a modern way. So this business school has a very historical part that you can see on the right part of the image, and a contemporary part that we have added to it. And what we have favored is this dialogue between something very contemporary and something historical dating back to the early 20th century. Inside, we have continued also this dialogue between areas, and we have created in between the historical and the new buildings this atrium that a student can appropriate. And here you can see what I call the intelligent facade, printed glass that we are using both as a cladding, but also in order to rotate when we have like a great amount of sun exposure, automatically the shutter can regulate the amount of suns that we want to have inside the building. So this is how we tackle the context, as you can see, with a certain freedom, but a dialogue, and which really dialogue is all about the conversation with the context is all about what we target in our practice. So sometimes we are invited to create context at different scales. For instance, here, La Grande Passerelle Cultural Center in Saint-Malo It's a cultural center that stands in the city of France, close to the sea, opening on the sea. And the building is to create a public space, a public link between the station, the railway station, and the heart of the city. So as you can see, the building is a building, but also a public space in the same time. So it creates a link. That's why it's called passerelle. It's a bridge, a small bridge in France. And the building here is creating a context because it's improving all urban connection, creating busy places for people. It's concentrated about culture. And here you can see the library, transparency on the neighborhood. So this is a way to create at a small scale new context. But here you can see it how context creation can be done at a bigger scale. For instance, in Jinan, China, it's really a huge building of 380,000 square meter. It's a mixed-use building with cultural component that you can see here on this image. So the first phase is all about culture, featuring 3 components, an art gallery, a museum, and a library, a public library. And here, as we did for the Passerelle in Saint-Malo, we wanted to create public space in the same time that we are creating a public landmark. So you can see the opening, the care with which we have designed through this fragmented building, the look and feel of a whole area, but also plenty of spaces to enjoy. This is the public art gallery. It's the event space of the building. It's how it's seen from inside. This is views from the library. And this is a night view of the building that activate this new area of Jinan, which is very close to the railway station. And this is how we create a cultural landmark in order to bring life to a new part of the city. And then sometimes when you have to tackle the context, you have to act as a magnet because some cities lack of magnets. So you have to work with the context in a different way. And this is the Amman Rotana Hotel. It's in Amman in Jordan. It's the capital city of Jordan. And it's a horizontal city that was created in the 20th century with highways and roundabout. And it lacks of point of orientation. And this tower is designed really to become a place, a point, a focus that orientates the space around it. So here you can see it from profile. You can see it from face when you are facing it. And it's never the same. So you have always the sense of being looking in a different direction when you look at this building. This building is strongly connected to the street level through its podium. As you can see, it tackles the vertical dimension, but also the horizontal dimension. And all its podium is glazed, interactive with the city, and offering different amenities and restaurants. And here you can see the view that you have from the tower and Amman all around. So this is a new icon of Amman where sometimes they make the celebration in it, and mostly the National Day is projected as a light and sound show on the building.
That's fantastic, Roueida. You know, one of the things that I've always been amazed about Architecture Studio is the way in which you organize yourself as a practice. You all have a fantastic working philosophy, and you also have a very, very interesting way of organizing design, the design process. I thought you could share with us how you organize the design process.
I will answer your question with a video that shows our collaborative design process, taking the example of one of our recent projects, an office building in Buenos Aires. It has been very recently awarded the first prize of the French Architects Overseas Association.
Buenos Aires est une métropole de 11 millions d'habitants, multiculturelle, ouverte sur le monde et périodiquement en crise. C'est notre premier projet dans cette ville magnifique.
Nous sommes Architecture Studio. Architecture Studio est un groupe qui conçoit et réalise collectivement. L'architecture, pour nous, est un art engagé. Et évidemment, nous nous préoccupons très fortement de notre planète, de cette planète très fragilisée.
Nous commençons toujours un projet par aborder les contextes et les contextes dans les sens les plus larges, des problématiques économiques à la situation politique, l'écologie toujours au centre de la réflexion, on passe à la forme urbaine, ici par exemple celle de Buenos Aires.
Cette ville est un immense tissu orthogonal constitué d'îlots réguliers dont les parcelles font 8,66 m de large. Les clients, Jack Green, nous demandent à travers d'un programme tertiaire de dépasser son paradigme. Il nous propose de travailler sur 2 parcelles quelconques, bordées par des pignons d'auteurs différentes, dont l'une dépasse les gabarits maximales constructibles. Pour harmoniser la forme urbaine, une nouvelle règle nous permet de dialoguer avec la ville afin de remplacer les pignons aveugles par des façades.
La question qui s'est posée à nous d'emblée, c'est comment imaginer de nouvelles manières de travailler dans le contexte du climat très agréable de Buenos Aires.
En collaboration avec les architectes locaux, nous avons dessiné un premier tempo qui respectait toutes les règles.
Oui, c'était un très beau projet, mais avec une architecture qui pouvait être faite par la qualité des architectes de Buenos Aires. Et donc, nous n'étions pas, nous, Architecture Studio, attendus pour cela. Donc, nous avons repensé complètement le projet et nous sommes repartis au travail.
L'apport du collectif nous pousse à dépasser nos limites et à intégrer de nouveaux savoir-faire. C'est ainsi que nous avons repensé les projets pour redonner continuité aux différents plans des façades, relier les volumes, les bâtiments mitoyens, les balcons et signaler l'entrée. Nous avons dessiné l'enveloppe à travers un jeu précis des lignes droites et des courbes raccordées tangentiellement.
Notre défi, c'est de donner du sens à la forme. Nous travaillons sur des projets très divers, ce qui nous permet d'intégrer des savoir-faire transversaux, par exemple l'analyse du cycle de vie des matériaux, l'efficacité énergétique, la conception passive.
Les bâtiments est issu de la confrontation de la morphologie de l'îlot, de la réglementation urbaine et de l'exposition de la masse bâtie aux apports solaires. L'enveloppe devient une double peau, constituée de dentelles vitrées, pivotantes et sérigraphiées. Elle régule les apports solaires et prolonge les plateaux tertiaires vers l'extérieur, ce qui offre un nouvel espace bioclimatique. La façade performante préserve l'inertie thermique du béton apparent et restitue l'énergie stockée tout au long de l'année. Dans ce monde de plus en plus virtuel, nous avons voulu revaloriser les lieux. Chacun peut choisir son espace de travail à l'intérieur, ouvert sur l'extérieur ou dehors dans l'espace bioclimatique. Pour créer une synergie entre les équipes de travail, les noyaux de circulation verticale est pensé comme un véritable périscope. Une promenade architecturale couronnée par une fenêtre urbaine ouverte sur la ville. Enveloppé de pavés de verre, c'est un lien naturellement éclairé qui favorise les croisements, les échanges et les rencontres. Dans une parcelle exiguë, ces dispositifs apportent la lumière du jour aux parties des plateaux les plus éloignés des façades. Les différents niveaux du bâtiment se déploient autour du périscope. Ce sont des plateaux libres qui offrent une grande flexibilité. 2 espaces extérieurs paysagers offrent des lieux de repos, des ressources et des convivialités. À Buenos Aires, le changement climatique produit des pluies torrentielles. La terrasse végétalisée, avec plus d'1 mètre de hauteur de terre, permet de retenir et de réutiliser l'eau des orages.
Dans notre laboratoire de réflexion paramétrique, nous faisons en sorte pour croiser les données environnementales avec le paramètre du projet pour concevoir et optimiser nos réalisations.
Les façades courbes sont issues d'une cartographie des apports solaires reçus par chacune d'entre elles. 5 sérigraphies conçues à l'aide des champs de force reproduisent des reflets et des transparences. Un processus génératif dans une trame régulière introduit un ordre aléatoire qui anime subtilement la façade. Une gestion éco-responsable de la double peau permet de filtrer 74% des apports solaires, réduisant drastiquement la consommation énergétique du bâtiment. Les mouvements de dentelle, leurs différents degrés de transparence et les rayons du soleil créent une façade vivante. Les bâtiments se transforment d'une manière constante au rythme des saisons et de la journée.
pour réussir un projet à l'étranger, et en particulier dans un pays aussi éloigné que l'Argentine, la transmission de notre savoir-faire est capitale, mais ce n'est pas suffisant. Le principal, c'est d'arriver à établir une confiance et une dynamique avec nos partenaires architectes, nos partenaires ingénieurs, qui seront, eux, capables d'intégrer toutes les complexités du contexte local pour réaliser et mener à bien le projet que l'on a conçu à Paris.
We believe that this collaborative design process of architecture studios was unique, and we have a lot to learn from it. Can you enlighten us about how you work in a collaborative manner?
So collaborative matter and the team work is very essential in our practice. And I have picked here some project where we extended this notion of working in a group, in a team, not only to the partner architect of architecture studio, but to other architects with whom we have been very happy to team with, because, the nature of the project or the nature of the context or just the pleasure of sharing ideas and sharing knowledge with other of our colleagues, which are not in our office permanently, of course, did really wonder in terms of the quality of design. So this is the University Hospital Center of Guadeloupe. We did it with Babel. Babel is another French company which knows very well Guadeloupe. So this hospital, which is around 800 beds, 85,000 square meter, was designed with Babel jointly, and of course with a team of engineers. But what is very good with designing with architect is that it's not just about saying this is your specialty, this is my specialty. It's really putting together this wonderful synergy in order to come up with a building. So it was a design competition organized on the French way of design public design competition, and we won the project because we have designed the whole hospital as a village, and we have really focused not only on the context but on the social context. And we all know that healthcare facilities are different, not in terms of technology, because the technology and the way we can take care of people has to be in the best of the world knowledge everywhere in the world, but the way the hospital is used is different according to the society. So for instance, in Guadeloupe, people can come with families to visit the patients, and we can see that the whole project was designed of what we call the Caribbean street, and this Caribbean street is ventilated. It's not an enclosed space, it's sheltered, ventilated, and it really creates the ideal condition to make it like a buffer in between the city and the neighborhood and the hospital by itself. So the University Hospital Center of Tanger is a project in Morocco, in Tanger, and here it was a design competition, and we have partnered with Agence Hadji and El Wali, Moroccan practice, and we have won together the project, and we have defined a way of sharing, according to the phase of the project, sharing the architectural part of it. So it was designed in Paris, and our Moroccan partner brought a small team in order to work with us during the competition design. And then it was always done on a way of having a collaborative effort at all steps of the project, including the supervision. So here you can see some images of this project. It has a wide canopy because, it's sunny and we have really to adapt to the weather in Morocco. This is the lobby of the hospital, and this is now the site as it is. So our local partner is dealing with the construction supervision, but part of our team is coming on a monthly basis to visit the site and to give support from Paris. So Ben Guerir University Campus is another competition that we won in Morocco, in Ben Guerir, with NY Architecture, who is a Moroccan practice. So we decided to go jointly to the competition. So we're very happy to win it. And it consists in a master plan of the campus, but also in the architectural design of the residential area. And where you can see this red color reflects really the nature of the ground and the nature of the context in Ben Guerir. It's close to Marrakech, if you want to see where it is. So this is the public amenities and public space inside the campus. And this is some other pics of the campus where you can see that we wanted to relate this contemporary architecture to a flavor from the Moroccan architecture in this area. And to end this section, I will speak about this Yenenga New City design competition, urban design competition that we won in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso in Africa. And here we have created a team of architects to tackle this issue of the city, including architects from Paris and also architects from Burkina Faso. And we won this competition for this new city. I'm not going to detail the presentation, but you can see it's really something. It's a city from scratch, designed with green, environmentally friendly approaches. And also we have tackled this issue of public spaces, which is very important now, having landmarks, but also having really a very pleasant spaces for people to live in.
Roueida, one of the greatest things that I noticed was that you win a lot of competitions because of this approach of designing in a collaborative manner and looking at context. You have a way of actually attempting design competitions, not only locally in France, but globally. Can you talk a little bit about how you organize yourself and how you deal with design competitions specifically?
So, Abhin, we believe really that one a public authority or even a private entity want to make an international competition. This means that they are looking for new ideas and for innovation. So it's always our philosophy is to bring ideas on the table for the entity who is launching a competition. So ideas are always more interesting when they are shared with other partners, other local partners when we work in foreign context, because we can understand from them more about the society, more about the context, more about the needs, and also about the new aspiration. It means what the society is seeking for. And they wanted to create a cultural landmark that suits the skyline of this island and its seascape. It's very important when you design a new building to understand if you have to tackle only the urban dimension or the landscape dimension. And here it's really about tackling both the landscape and seascape dimension and creating a new magnet in the city. Here you can see the foyer of the theaters that I have already shown and that we have developed with the most sophisticated software system. And this was done by a Bahraini contractor, the wood. And what you see, all this sophistication of the wood that suits perfectly the acoustic and the vision of a theater was done thanks to the 3D software, but also a great control of workmanship. And this is done by local contractors. And we're very happy also when what we do can be easily done with very successful local contractors. So here you can see the upper foyer. And this is how this building stands in Bahrain skyline and in the waterfront. And I take this opportunity to say that the treatment of waterfront, it's really one of the major concerns that cities have, because it's really how they can enhance the space for citizens. So now I'm showing few examples of design competition. And here in design competition, of course, you are judged on the project by itself. The team is very important as well because you have a collaborative team that has to work since day one on the project. So here we teamed up with engineering and architect team, Auger International. They are French, but they are also based in the United Arab Emirates. And here you can see this project. We have won the competition because it's a boutique hotel in a virgin place in really a very, very nice landscape, arid landscape overlooking the oasis. And we want to be really as less intrusive as possible in this landscape. So we have proposed this concept that you can see here. Rather than building overwhelming hotel, we wanted to integrate it to the hill, as you can see here on the right part of the image, and avoid having something that can cut the profile of the mountains. So the hotel guest room are integrated to the hill, and then you have like all the amenities that are on top of the hill in a very horizontal manner, and they offer a terrace that you can see here. And this terrace is really a very interesting place to contemplate the landscape. And we believe that people who come in this area, it's really to contemplate the landscape. So the building has to be very nice, but also it has to vanish in the landscape. King Abdulaziz Road in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia, is another international competition that we won based on an urban design project. And here, what was considered as being very strong in our project is that we have highlighted, all the qualities of an urban avenue. It's a 4-kilometer avenue that linked the third ring road to the first ring road of Mecca. And here on the right side, you can see the Holy Mosque of Mecca. And our idea was really to conciliate transit traffic, which can have a speed of 70 kilometers per hour, with more, with a slower city and slower mood. So we come up with this avenue, which is a symbolic avenue to Mecca, that feature, a layer for public transportation and a layer for transit, but also local road and local streets that allow, to stitch the city on both parts of this avenue and not to create, what sometimes high-speed avenue can create as a wall or separation in a city. And here you see the mosque that was designed in the middle at 2 kilometers from the Haram, at midway from the third ring road and the Kaaba, the Haram and the Holy Mosque of Mecca.
So I thought I should, ask you a few questions.
Yes.
And then you could probably illustrate those questions like you've done with some examples. I wanted to ask you this question, that Architecture Studio was always founded on a manifesto. You all actually wrote down how you want to make your practice happen back when you founded it. How relevant is that manifesto today? Do you design with the same manifesto, even now?
Abhin, it's a very interesting question, not in style, but in the DNA of Architecture Studio. We believe that the idea of DNA is a more active notion than style, because the style is always dated. You have the style of the 70s, the style of the 80s, the style of this architect at this time of his work, etc., etc. But when you have a methodology and an approach, a philosophy, and let us say a DNA, it means a way of questioning what's happening, a way of questioning the world that is evolving every day. You have an architecture that can adapt to the change of the world, but also to different locations in the world. And this is what is transmitted in our company through generation. It's the DNA of Architecture Studio is philosophy, and its philosophy is not a fixed philosophy. It's an open philosophy to host the evolving new world.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, one question. In your design process, I understand that it's a very open design process where the best ideas and the best thoughts and best best interventions into a project are recognized and utilized. How do you go about this design process? Can you design democratically?
It's a very good question because, even in democracy, I believe that when you base democracy on the common good, it can make it very interesting. And it's really, I'm just mentioning a political matter in a noble sense of politic, and also the way we design the project. It means that if you can get rid of ego and battle of ego and say, I'm concentrating on the common good, it means the thing that is the best for the project, the best for the society, the best for the work, it can work very well in a democratic way. But to work in democracy, and the word democracy is very important, and thank you for using it. It means that the dialogue is very important. In democracy, debating and discussing is fundamental. It doesn't come from the highest point of the pyramid down. You have to debate, and you have to create the good conditions for a debate, be it an architectural debate or a political debate. So it means that you have to understand the point of view of your partner architect, listen to it, and then you can react back with bringing another idea and interacting with him, and then he bring another new idea. So I think that listening and understanding and interacting is really the most important part of our philosophy. But also we have to turn it then into shapes and space and architecture. So this is another matter. But debate is really at the fundament.
So how do you decide? Like there's a competition design and we want that the best design moves forward representing the firm's work. So is it that the partners get together and review the design and then take a decision that let's go ahead with this option and this way of going about the design? How do you take
Abhin, we do more than reviewing the design. It means that what we want to do for every project is designing it through brainstorming session. It means that's why I said that it's very important to draw with our hand, not really artistic drawing. It can be sketches, it can be throwing ideas, but just giving the way that it could materialize. So we do this type of brainstorming session by drawing and speaking and discussing. And then sometimes you have a feeling, and it happens for every architect and for every group of architects. When an idea very strong, it is not a struggle of ego and persons, this idea that is designed by the session, let us say, because nobody in this type of session can say, this is my idea. It is the idea of the session and the collaborative work and the synergy. And when you are very happy, usually it's an indicator that this idea designed by the session and not by an ego or a person or an architect has been successful.
No duty is more urgent than that of giving thanks.
Grand salute to you.
Unsung and unseen.
Warriors on the front line.
The fight against COVID-19.
Tiring days and sleepless nights.
Unconditional dedication.
Selfless determination to serve.
Extraordinary courage to sacrifice.
And really?
Zeal to overcome.
Love and passion for your job.
Your selfless efforts to keep us safe and healthy.
Firefighters and the police forces.
Pathologists and paramedics, world leaders,
teachers and researchers,
the brochures, the cleaners, firefighters and the police forces.
pathologists and paramedics,
sanitation
world leaders,
teachers and researchers,
The brochures, the cleaners,
Critical infrastructure workers, social workers, government employees, and administrators.
For keeping me safe.
my family, and nation
Social
safe.
workers, government employees, and administrators.
stay safe.
And jacket.
For keeping me safe.
My family, and nation safe.
For being you.
Stay home, stay safe.
And jacket.
Hello.
Hello.
So hello. Yes, good to see you, and very nice to discuss with you about your work. I would like to introduce to the audience René-Henri Arnaud, the chairman of the board of Architecture Studio. Bonjour.
Hello.
I hope you're having
Bonjour.
a good day, and in Paris. We in India are having all this lockdown, but at the same time, through webinars and through various conferences, we are having very good interactions with international architects across the world. So thank you for engaging us and engaging this audience on Architecture Studio. René, you've been with Architecture Studio since 1985, and you've been there when you all actually founded. Architecture Studio was founded just a few years before that. So could you tell us a little bit about how Architecture Studio has evolved over these last few years?
Last 2 years?
Last 30 years. 30 years.
14.
Wait. Oh. Yeah.
We are involved in many countries. Since 14 years, one experience which is very important for us was the China, because I am involved in China. I am involved in China for 20 years, but for me, the experience in the country, because we began a new experience with a company in China, with an office in Shanghai, and after another office in Beijing. And for us, we are involved in this maelstrom, which is the world in China. It is a real special experience if you compare with Europe development. I think in India you can have this energy could be the same than in China, but for us European, it is a very special experience about the project of architecture and the experience to begin a new company in a foreign country.
So when you started Architecture Studio, you all were a few partners, 4 partners. Now you have about 13 partners in Architecture Studio. So how do you go about having these partners? I mean, what makes you decide that someone becomes a partner, and what do you expect from a partner in Architecture Studio?
It is for us. It is a co-decision. It is an experience with different architects. Now the oldest is Rodot-Tisnado, and with the first generation. Now they are retired, but they are involved in the life of the company. And for us, for the choice of the new partners, it is an experience of after. It's not a question of time. It could be very, very short after. But it is a question of feeling. Whitson, for example, Whitson Montero, who is last partner, he has 35 years. It is the same age of my son,
Okay.
And he came in office for 6 years.
5 years,
Yeah.
6 years.
But it is a question of feeling between and the comprehension about the project of architecture. In Architecture Studio, for us, the experience to manage the project in interaction with the other partner is very important. In this condition, for us, it is very important to make the decision of the new partners. At this time, we make a mistake, of course, but not so much because it is a question of professional progression, because when we propose to the young architect to be a partner, it is we make Paris.
We are betting, in fact, on the future, saying that
yes,
it will work.
you're making a bet for the future. You're
Yes.
basically
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
But for this, it is a question of connection. You know, it's very important.
Yes, it's the ability to work in group, because as our philosophy is all about sharing, the project and the design of the project. So first of all, he has to be excellent, because of course it's not enough to say that he can work with the group. And second, it's how he can work with all of us and, play in this big orchestra that we would like to put in place.
And it is a process, because when you decide of one partner, his attitude change, with the responsibility, and it is like a flower, an eclosion, it's it's very interesting.
So So tell me, has Architecture Studio had any partners that have transitioned? That means you've had a partner and then the partner has moved on, or are the original partners, and more partners coming in? So is it just increasing in size, or there have been some partners that have come and gone over the period of time?
Very few. It means basically you have some partners who are retiring, but they are still very much involved in the daily life of our office. And I think it happened twice during the history of Architecture Studios that one partner decided to leave. But it's, let us say, not usual. It's still very exceptional. And our group is growing. It's something that it could happen, but the idea, is not replacing. There is no turnover of partner, let us say. The idea is that we have a core team and a younger architect joins this core team. And then, of course, those who are the eldest are more involved in representing the office or having, a presidential vision, let us say. It means not involved in the making of, but, bringing ideas. So I think it's a very good balance between generation, and this allows us to cover, like the society of different ages, because you are not designing a building for only teenagers or children or people in their 50 or their 60. So it's really very interesting to see this lifespan, in fact, and this multiple experience of the society.
So, it's a firm that is considered to be a very radical firm. Your organizational philosophy, the way the firm is conceived, the way you design democratically. So tell me, what is your outlook towards the future? I mean, what does the Architecture Studio believe in today? And what does it believe in terms of the architecture of today and tomorrow?
I will suggest one word.
Yes.
The architecture is part of an ecosystem, in fact, and an active part of an ecosystem. It means what we can see is how being an architect or an urban designer can change this whole ecosystem, which is an equation with the environment, with the economy, with the society, with history, with the identity of people and places. And we strongly believe that further to our contextual approach in the early 70s, now we are developing this idea of being an active part of an ecosystem and bringing this architecture as being as active as possible. We don't believe that only architecture can change the world, but we believe that it can be part of the active principles that can change things and that make the life better and that make the relationship to the environment better as well, and the relationship to others and to people.
So some people in the audience have asked whether you're doing any projects in India and whether you want to do any projects in India.
We would like very much, Abhin, as you know.
Yes, I know that. I know the answer, but I thought that other people should get an opportunity to ask questions. It's not, when you work in all these different countries, it's sometimes difficult to it's great to have an idea, but it's also important to be able to execute the idea very well, because
Yes.
after all, we are building buildings. So how do you manage to see that when you work in all these different countries, in Oman and Bahrain and China, etc., that you manage to get the right kind of quality and you manage to build the ideas? After all, the brand is what is finally built. Our reputation depends on what we build. So what kind of care do you take to see that what is conceived is what is built?
The question I think the interest in India, it is a new organization of the city, I think, and for the difficulty in India at this time, it is you have many good architects in India. You have a good tradition of architect, and for us, it's difficult to find the good place in the ecosystem of India. If we are not in India, it's very difficult to work in India from Europe. And at this time, we don't find the good receipt to the good manner to work in India. We finished now a conception for a project in Vietnam, which is in between the China and India, and we find the difficulty is to find the partner in the good balance between Europe and India.
Yes, that is true. You see, one of the things that we in our company have discovered, we also work in different countries across the world, and in many ways, STUP's origin comes from France. But we found that whenever you go to different countries, they have different construction technologies and different ways of constructing buildings. And it's very interesting to learn about how they construct if you want to construct something really well. And I found that the kind of open dialogue and the open approach you have when you work with in different countries, and when you work in your own office, is something that's quite conducive to working together across the world, doing a collaborative design.
Yes, we have shown during the presentation the National Theatre of Bahrain, and I really stressed the fact that a Bahraini contractor built the sophisticated auditorium. And for us, understanding what are the strengths of a country in terms of workmanship, in terms of technology, in terms also of how they would like to build things, is really a data that we integrate as the first steps of the project. And it's important to take it into account, as far as also you take into account the climate and the economical condition, because of course you have certain countries where you can build with this amount of euro or US dollar, and some other, this is not possible. You have to adapt to a budget and what is acceptable for a public building in such area by keeping the quality of this building. So we really believe that this is really what we call the ecosystem, is taking all this into account in order to successfully design a building and then supervise it. And the supervision, we always rely to local partner during the supervision is very important as well. And we start working with our local partner during the design phases as well, because they can give several input on the design and the technologies and the way of living and the country's expectation.
Yes, I think you're very right. When you're working collaboratively, it's good to feed the design at the conceptual process, and as long as you have a very open, way of looking at the context and looking at the project, it allows you to actually absorb the local context and the local, issues very well and inform your design. So we can see that in a lot of the work that you've done. And, there's one interesting aspect. A firm like yours, every project is different. Every project is unique. Whereas when we work with a firm like Zaha Hadid, like for example, we are doing an airport right now in India with Zaha Hadid's firm, every project is basically defined on a particular language or a particular kind of a brand. So how did Architecture Studio manage to market itself and build the brand? Because it wasn't a style that defined the brand. It was a process.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us through, I mean, how did you build this brand? How did you build this? It was a fantastic idea. It's 40 years of journey, So what are your reflections? Because there are other architects who build this based on a particular style, a language, and a kind of a brand which is characterized by that style and language, whereas yours is an open work. Every project is different and every project is unique.
Yes, but you just said it. It means what the clients who work with us like in our approach is that we are designing something completely unique for them, and that the style is not already here. You see what I mean? It means they consider that part of the design effort, and we consider this as well, is finding the right style for a building or the right architectural shape, let us say, the right architectural expression for every context. We have been working at the international scale since the beginning of this millennium.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have heard around the world that people would like to build their contemporary identity. And if you come with your own identity already, it will be difficult because it means that they are, let us say, buying this architect by this big name or this other big name. What people like in our approach is that we can invent, and we are willing to invent, their own contemporary identity, which is of course part of our creative effort, but it's like, share, go back and share, and it's about iteration with the client and to understand really what could be unique in this place and what could be part of its iconic contemporary identity.
So tell me something. This idea of having a kind of a very contextual architecture. I saw two projects that you demonstrated here. One was the business school in Paris, and
Yes.
then you showed the project of Buenos Aires, where it was a really fantastic building, and both use glass and both use a similar material, and both are very, very conscious of the context. And it is not about creating a kind of a language or a brand or an identity for the architect. It is more a question of making something that is there in the present, in the then and now, and at that particular time and at that particular space. So it's a dilemma, for architects who are listening to you out here in India, who are building their careers, that if you take your it's almost like you are a chameleon. You are not somebody who's known through who you are, but through what your buildings are. And every building is different, and still you become someone of reputation, because you have built a reputation of building different kinds of buildings. And it's not about difference; it's about contextual. It's about specificity, from what I can understand. So it's a very courageous decision and 40 years journey. So it's been quite interesting. Tell me, at the same time, when you're designing a building in Tibet, out here, how do you get such commissions? Are you invited for it? Is there, is it part of, how do you manage to get commissioned in foreign lands like China and, Bahrain, etc.?
In Tibet?
Yes, it was an international competition.
It was a competition with a Chinese partner, but the Tibet, it was a very special situation in China because it is under control. And for us, it was, we need to interpret the condition of the cultural, but for us, it was difficult to be involved in the condition of the Tibet. It is, and we work with Chinese partners about this project. It was a competition for each kind, for this public building in China. It is with a competition. It's not a decision for leaders. And after, for us, the problem it was we cannot go into Tibet because it was in control by the China power. This project is a science natural museum, and we do the same now in Morocco this morning. And it is a universal thematic for exhibition, but it was a question because you have the domination of one nation on one territory, and we are for architects, for us it is a problem. The French know very well this because we have this situation in Algeria, but it is a part of for us it is a part of the issue, and it is a part of architecture also. And we can do a very good project in this situation, but it is the balance. It's difficult effectively to manage it.
Yes, I think it's very interesting. I also, I would also like to talk to you a little bit about materials, and technology. You have a lot of buildings which are high performance with high specificity. So tell me, Institut du Monde Arabe with the Moucharabieh, which are operable. And then now in Buenos Aires, you're going to different countries, one France and now, Buenos Aires, and you're actually designing high performance buildings. How do you work on the technology? With whom do you work? How do you develop the technology of these vitro? Do you have partners who actually design this, who are engineers or this thing, or do you associate with people, in the market?
We usually, for this building, you need to have expertise from the engineering part, and to have several engineers who are like facade engineers. They don't design the facade, but they can calculate the performance of the facade or give you advices on the amount of opaque versus transparent parts that you need to have, and how this facade can react vis-à-vis the daylight, but also vis-à-vis the temperature of the sun exposure. So usually we have for our building this type of facade engineering, and which is also a performance about facades. It's technical performance of the facade. But for some building, it's not that sophisticated. So an architect, coming back to the passive means of design, and sometimes in traditional architecture, you can see that some passive means that were implemented during centuries are very efficient from this point of view. So we need really to understand what is the dominant wind, how we can deal with the sun exposure. But of course, the type of the facade you are referring to, which is Novancia Business School, for instance, and the building in Buenos Aires, we have like sensors, or the Institute of the Arab World, you have sensors that communicate the information about the sun exposure to the rotation of the facade or the closing of or opening of the diaphragm. So this you need, of course, to have a manufacturer that is aware of how to communicate this information from the climate, let us say, to the facade itself. But it is now, I think, a very common technology to do that. When it was the Institute of the Arab World, it was really like a pioneering building. It was one of the first that has a very intelligent facade. Now, this technology of converting data to reaction on the facade is something that all contractors specialized in facade knows very well.
So, one question, so you're talking about technology, but one interesting aspect of your design process is that you believe a lot in sketching. You believe a lot in drawing with the hand. So can you explain to the audience a little bit about why and how it is so important to draw, to sketch in your design process?
For us, the drawing is not a question of design; it's a question of communication. It is the support of the processes for the decision, and it's like writing for us. But we have two elements in our process of decision. It is the word, the exchange, the direct exchange, and the design. But the design is not. it could be precise, but because it is very quick, we can do very quickly, and we can manage the processes of idea very quickly with the design. It is our culture. Now, with the computer, we know we use the computer, of course, but in general, if we have a good idea and we can decide with drawing, after the process, now with the process of the computer, we can integrate very quickly with 3D. But before, the processes of the drawing is very efficient to fix the idea. With the drawing, we can after explain the concept. It is a process. It is a balance between the word, between the drawing, and the computer can make in the volume with a 3D model. We can appreciate, we can validate, but we are very worried about the multiplication of computer drawing, because after we are lost, we don't know where we are if you have too many situations. And with the drawing, we can make the thinking on the sketch. It's and we can cross also.
Yes, Reuter was explaining to me that you all believe in drawing because there's a very good link between the brain and the hand.
It's true.
And it's very important. And today what happens is that even in schools of architecture and in architectural practices with the computer, there's a fascination of actually going straight onto the computer and not sketching and not drawing. And it's very interesting that your process involves, from what Reuter explained to me, that you actually sketch before you go onto the computer. You communicate through your sketches and drawings and ideas across the tables. It's very nice. This idea of working together and collaboratively brainstorming. Can you talk a little bit about it more? Because, eventually when you have different ideas, how do you control the decision-making process? It'd be very interesting to know that.
What is very good about our group is that we are not two persons. Because if you have two, when we say black, the other will say white. No. But in our office, it is the role also of drawing, which is very important. Because sometimes you have an idea and you express it with words and nobody say anything. It seems that it's a dull idea. But then you put it in a drawing and you see that it has plenty of potential. So what is good about our working session is that we draw very quickly. Not artistic drawing, it's like sketching idea and investigating the potential of an idea architectural-wise, or in terms of a layout, or in a term of presence in a particular site. And then we can have different idea and we sketch all of them during a meeting. It means that we can start a drawing, we leave it aside, we start another drawing by hand, and then another partner come and draw over the drawing of the other partner. And finally, sometime we have discussed during, 1 hour, and then we bring a calc and we put it on top of this, and we make a common synthesis of all, not the idea, the verbal idea, but all what's the potential of this idea could be as a building, and we draw in this case. So this is how we can work. So sometimes we can discuss, we can have different opinions, but finally we always reach not a compromise, because a compromise is not satisfactory. We reach something that most of us are very happy with, let us say. And then we convince the two others that are still a little bit reluctant. And when they see how it develops in a real architecture, let us say, or a project, it means coming from the concept to a project, then they can be fully convinced, because between the idea and materializing it in an architectural form, you have a big distance, a big jump to do. And I think that when this big jump is successful, then ideas are validated.
Well, René-Henri and Reuter, myself, I had worked with Architecture Studio for a little while, but it was a huge influence because I had a dilemma working in a country like India I believe that if you really want to build something good in India, you got to have the contractor, the engineer, the architect, and the client all on the same table, sketching and drawing and brainstorming together. And so therefore, we felt that this kind of open democratic process, well, India is one of the largest democracies in the world. It will be a great experiment to use the ideas of Architecture Studio and try and develop an open work practice. It's a struggle. It's not successful. The reason why I ask you all these questions is that I find every day a challenge in building, this kind of a process of, the words like compromise, consensus, dialogue, debate, paradox. All these are very critical ideas to our design process, because we have to have debate. There is no black and white. There are different nuances to everything. And it's very interesting. It sometimes struck me that this is perhaps the best way to actually harness talent. Because, if a talented architect works under a master, he's working under his language. But if a talented architect has a platform in which he can express himself, and the platform allows him to contribute, then he really contributes to the design process. So I think it's a very interesting way of harnessing talent. What do the educational institutions in France think about firms like Architecture Studio? Is there a very good relationship between y'all and the educational institutions? How do you interact with the educational institutions?
We teach in several schools already, and sometimes several of our colleagues, French architects, ask us how we manage to build our team and this idea of crossing generation with a group and designing as a group. So the model of Architecture Studio is very popular among the youngest today, and even some other architectural companies that are becoming big enough to host new partners. So this is, I think that several architects would like to do a firm as the one we have done, because for them it demonstrated success. It means it didn't collapse. We didn't have like big crisis. We never had crisis. And we are very happy with this. It's stable, and everybody understands that we are not a copy one of each other. We have our personalities, and our diversity is what makes us very rich in a way, because we can put all this together and we can form, all the colors of the rainbow in our group. So for the educational and institutional part, I think what I appreciate is that we value very much the idea of having a company and not saying we are only artists, because we are responsible towards all architects and other people working in our company. We don't have only architects, we have people specialized in communication, in economy, in different fields. And we believe that also an architect has to be responsible when he designs a building, but also he has to be responsible as being on the head of a society. And this society is to transmit the way of doing architecture to younger generation, and also to keep a level of employment and openness to the world, because as you know, we have different nationalities, and this is really appreciated by our French governmental entities and the French, let us say, educational system. Is this idea of being very open to the world, and really we are now very happy to be recognized as working at an international scale. And this what, in a way, make our experience even more different in France than other architects, because not only we are a group of different nationalities, and we are a group working internationally. So this is our DNA.
We can keep on talking about your philosophy and your, venture. It's really, really very interesting, and it's been a very illuminating talk. Every time I come across you, I learn something new. Thank you, René Oriano. Thank you, Roueida Ayache. And look forward to the next time we meet. Take care.
Very much, Abhin. Hope to see you soon, and thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Awa. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Donc c'est lui, après, il le met sur son...
Ça y est, là, on était en direct.
Ouais, là, c'est en direct.
Ah d'accord, c'était une... Mais c'est lui qui l'anime, le truc.
Oui, il y a une petite partie de présentation déjà faite.
Non,
Et
ça,
là,
j'ai compris.
c'est en
Mais
direct.
donc il fait le truc et puis
Oui,
il fait
il
une
a fait
émission,
ça,
quoi.
une émission.